Hi, it's day 25. It's been a few days. I definitely kind of fell off the wagon there. Um, and it got a little ridiculous. I totally just became a victim to my own circumstances. When I talk about being an owner versus a victim, I absolutely let the outside world affect who I was being, and I was using the outside world as evidences to some low quality thinking I was going through. And last week I mentioned the ladder of consciousness, and basically it's this ladder of like um, uh, victim versus owner, victim being down on the bottom, owner versus being on the top, empowerment being up top, forcing things down on the bottom. And the level of emotions that are involved in that is down at the bottom. Guilt, shame, fear, doubt, anxiety, all of those kinds of feelings are down at the bottom. And from that place, it's really difficult to create. It's not impossible, but you're not in a quality thinking state of mind. And in fact, on the levels of consciousness, shame is the very lowest, the very closest to death. And I had started to feel guilty about something, and then I let that kind of evolve into shame. And as I started to feel shame, then I started to get frustrated. I didn't have any ideas for my video. And then I started like turning that into this pitying thing, which I'm not judging myself for, but I very actively chose to stay in a low quality thinking state of mind. And the more shame that I was feeling over then not doing my video and over other things, then the more my world reflected how I was feeling. And so then I had even more evidence to prove all these low quality thoughts true. And it's just not a place of creation. I just kind of let that like fester for a couple of days. And one of the differences as I have gone on through my business and coaching and learned about this and learned about owner versus victim and learned how to be a creator of my life and own everything is that I know how to get out of that. And three of the very quickest ways to get out of that are laughing, singing, and dancing. They instantly create joy, and all of a sudden you're higher on the ladder. And when I'm high on the ladder, or when most people are high on the ladder, but like for me in particular, when I'm bringing enthusiasm and playfulness and creativity and fun and joy and gratitude, I'm a completely different person. And from that space, from like high spirits, high on the ladder, I've got all the ideas in the world, and I can take on anything, and I can create the impossible. And when I'm low on the ladder, like super low, and I'm feeling shame or guilt, that's when all my fear creeps up. That's when my doubt sinks in, and that can be its own spiral. And if I don't actively take the steps to rise out of that and climb up my ladder of consciousness, I can stay down there. And what was different for me about this time is, I'm sure you can relate. I'm sure you've all been there. Like when you're feeling crappy, and then all of a sudden you have all this evidence in the world to prove why you should feel crappy, and then it just kind of like you just stay there and you don't get out of it, and it just piles on and gets worse. Like, have you woken up and you started off your day feeling grumpy about something, and your whole day just goes wrong? That's being a victim. That's being a victim to the outside world, to your circumstances, rather than being an owner and taking charge. And it's reacting to the world rather than responding. And when we're in that victim state, like the world is just reflecting who we're being. And if we're being a victim, that's the kind of world that we're going to come up against. Totally lost my train of thought. And what was different for me is the reality is, like the more I'm able to be an owner, the more I'm able to differentiate between victim and creator. Like I can see it so clearly, but it doesn't change that I'm not going to still have some victim moments, that I'm going to, sometimes I'm going to actually choose. Sometimes my reaction is going to be of a victim state. The difference is I'm more aware of it, and I actually know how to get out of it. And what was intriguing for me this time is I was actively choosing to stay there. And I haven't really figured out why. I stayed low, and I had low quality thoughts for a few days that just got worse. And then this weekend I kind of woke up and I was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? Like, you know what to do to get out of this, and I instilled a lot of play into my weekend, and all of a sudden I was rising back up that ladder, and as soon as I was up there, I had ideas, and I have new videos, and I have all these things I want to do, and things I want to create, for not even for me, just for me, but for me, for my business, for our family. Like that's where I need to be, and I know how to get there, and that's an owner mentality versus a victim. So, but my point is, like, just because I'm aware of it doesn't mean I'm not susceptible to it. The difference is when if I have a feeling, if I do choose to be a victim, if I do choose to react to something from a victim mentality, to not judge. And that's one thing I did, because judgment of myself for reacting that way, for example, because I reacted from a victim mentality and I knew to not do that, and then I saw myself do that, and then I judged myself for doing that, and then I had shame, and shame just pulls you down. Shame is hard to pull out of. Shame just like is this spiral. It is the closest to death on the level of consciousness. So you can have your victim moments. You're going to have your victim moments, and they're going to be even more pronounced because you know how to be an owner. The goal is to okay, see it and be aware of it and acknowledge oh yeah, I totally chose to respond as a victim. React as a victim in that moment. And that's okay. And let it go. And not feel guilt or shame about it, because that's just going to keep you down and lower on the ladder. I know I kind of threw a lot out there at once, and I do apologize for just completely disappearing, but it did give me a nice opportunity to talk to you about this, and I'm back. And I do have a lot of ideas that I want to bring in as I continue on this video project and beyond. I'm actually kind of excited for this project to get over, because I have things I want to do that are not part of this, this daily just thoughts sharing. I've got some things I want to do. And so I'm headed down that path, and I'm definitely on a higher vibe place. And so yeah, if you have questions or thoughts or want to know, if you you can look up the level of consciousness ladder, or ladder of consciousness. Just type in David Hawkins and you can find it, but we can totally talk about it. And the more aware you become, the more you see it. Honestly, I never viewed myself as a victim ever my entire life. And but as I started to learn a victim mentality versus an owner mentality, a creator mentality, I started to see so many places that I was like, oh, holy crap. I actually am reacting in a victim state when I have complete control over that situation. And so it's actually really fun, because when you discover all the differences between a victim and an owner, truly, you can freaking change your life 100%. And it's really cool. So anyway, that was my video for today, just owning up to what happened the last few days, where I'm at, and I'll just see you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.